A new landmark has risen across Lake Victoria in Tanzania, and it has taken the continent by surprise. The John Pomag Foley Bridge, stretching 3.2 kilometers across the waters, is now the longest bridge in East and Central Africa. It is a symbol of ambition, resilience, and national pride. What makes this project even more remarkable is that Tanzania built it entirely with its own resources. No loans were taken, no aid was sought, and no donors were thanked. It was a project carried out quietly, steadily, and independently until it stood complete, shimmering in the morning mist. The opening day was unlike any other. On the 19th of June, 2025, just as the sun began to rise, thousands of Tanzanians gathered on the lake's edge. They pressed shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fixed on the horizon. Traders abandoned their market stalls. Children scrambled onto rooftops for a better view. Fishermen who had never left their villages stood still on the shore, watching intently. Out of the fog, the structure appeared an immense spine of steel and concrete stretching boldly across the water. There were no fireworks to mark its unveiling, but none were needed. The sheer scale of the bridge, gleaming under the first light of day, was more powerful than any staged spectacle. For many, it was an emotional moment. They cheered, they waved, and they felt an unmistakable sense of pride. The bridge immediately changed lives. For decades, ferries were the only way to cross the lake between Kagongo and Busisi. Those ferries were slow, unreliable, and sometimes dangerous. People waited for hours in long lines. Journeys were frequently delayed by mechanical breakdowns or rough waters. The crossing could take more than an hour, often much longer. But on this morning, everything was different. Cars rolled onto the new bridge, and within 4 minutes, they were on the other side. Families leaned out of car windows, music played from radios, and the frustrations of the past seemed to vanish in the wake of a new reality. The structure, named after the late President John Pomag Foley, was once just a dusty file in the archives of city planners. Few believed it would ever move beyond the drawing board. Yet here it stood, solid and unshakable. In a nation where major projects often stall or drag on for years, the speed and determination behind this bridge felt almost unreal. The surprise was not only in its completion, but in the way it was funded. Observers from across Africa and beyond asked the same question. How did Tanzania manage to build such a massive project without relying on outside help? The answer lies in careful and often quiet financial planning. Behind the scenes, Tanzania had been shifting its budget for years. Revenues from gold, agriculture, and domestic taxes were carefully funneled into a special infrastructure fund. Subsidies were reduced, government spending was trimmed, and less urgent projects were paused. The decision was bold and in some ways painful, but it was deliberate. The government wanted to build this bridge without loans, without foreign conditions, and without the compromises that often accompany outside funding. At a cost of $300 million, it was one of the largest self-financed infrastructure projects in the region. The message was clear. Tanzania could build, and it could build on its own terms. International reaction was mixed. Many journalists called it a miracle of African engineering. Others described it as an unprecedented act of self-reliance. A foreign reporter remarked that projects of this scale were usually seen in Asia or Europe, not in Africa, and certainly not in Tanzania's lake region. But the reality could not be denied. The bridge was real, it was complete, and it was open to traffic. The global silence from traditional donor institutions was also telling. There were no congratulatory notes from the IMF, no statements from the World Bank. Perhaps the story was too inconvenient, a story of a developing nation achieving something significant without their oversight or involvement. For Tanzania, however, this was not just about a bridge. It was about rewriting expectations. The structure does not only link Kagongo and Busisi, it links regions, trade routes, and economies. It provides a direct connection to Rwanda, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. reshaping the dynamics of commerce across East Africa. Goods that once spoiled or were delayed can now reach their destinations quickly and efficiently. A truck driver who once spent a day crossing with fish now makes the trip in hours, saving money on ice and fuel. Multiply that by hundreds of trucks each week, and the economic impact becomes undeniable. The transformation is visible beyond trade. For school children, the bridge means extra hours of sleep and punctual arrival at classes. For health workers, it means easier access to remote communities. The transformation is visible beyond trade. For school children, the bridge means extra hours of sleep and punctual arrival at classes. For health workers, it means easier access to remote communities. For pregnant women or those in medical emergencies, it means no longer being at the mercy of ferry schedules. In place of uncertainty and waiting, the bridge offers something rare and valuable: reliability. People can now plan their days with confidence, knowing they can cross the lake in minutes, not hours. The bridge is also reshaping the land around it. Property values are rising rapidly on both sides. Shops, restaurants, and guest houses are springing up along the roads leading to the bridge. Villages that once felt isolated are becoming bustling centers of trade and logistics. Even tourism is benefiting. The Lake Victoria region, often overlooked by travelers, is now more accessible than ever. Tour operators are adding the bridge to their itineraries, offering sunrise crossings complete with breakfast baskets and photo opportunities. Hotels and lodges are reporting increased bookings. What was once a remote corner of Tanzania is now a gateway to adventure. Jobs, too, have followed the bridge. During its construction, over 1,500 Tanzanians were employed. Unlike past projects where foreign workers dominated, this time local engineers, welders, surveyors, and drone operators took the lead. Foreign contractors were required to train Tanzanian staff, passing on skills and knowledge that would last beyond the project itself. Today, those same workers are in high demand for new projects across the country, from highways to stadiums. In this way, the bridge has not just connected land, it has connected a generation of Tanzanians to greater opportunity. At the opening ceremony, President Samia Suluhu Hassan walked across the bridge. She made no grand promises, no fiery speeches. She simply declared the bridge open, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The simplicity of the moment reflected the truth. The bridge itself was the miracle, a visible achievement that needed no extra words. It stood as both a tribute to her predecessor Magafuli's bold ideas and a testament to her own leadership in bringing them to life. Naming the bridge after Magufuli was not only an act of remembrance, but also a message. It said that his vision for a self-reliant Africa was alive, and it was now embedded in steel and concrete. The implications of this project are far-reaching. In Zambia, policymakers are already discussing whether they can follow Tanzania's example. In Ghana, economists are studying the strategy of self-financing major infrastructure. In Senegal, students are questioning why foreign aid is still considered essential. The bridge has sparked a quiet but powerful conversation across the continent. What if Africa can build without waiting for permission? What if independence, not dependency, becomes the new normal? Of course, boldness comes with responsibility. Tanzania must now prove that its model is sustainable. The bridge must be maintained and protected. It must not be sold off, mortgaged, or entangled in new debts disguised as aid. It must remain a symbol of strength, not become a victim of short-term politics. The lesson of the bridge will endure only if the country guards it carefully. Still, the achievement has already changed the narrative. For decades, Africa has been told what it cannot do, what it must borrow to achieve, and what it should wait for. But in 4 minutes, the time it takes to cross the John Pomag Foley Bridge, Tanzania has rewritten that story. The bridge is not just a road, it is a challenge. It challenges old assumptions, old dependencies, and old ways of thinking. It asks, what if this is not exceptional? What if this is simply the beginning of a new way of building, of dreaming, of moving forward? As the mist rises from Lake Victoria each morning and cars stream across the steel arches, the answer to that question grows clearer. The bridge is more than infrastructure. It is an idea. An idea that Africa's future does not have to be borrowed. An idea that ambition, discipline, and determination can lay down concrete paths without foreign permission. An idea that 4 minutes across a lake can carry the weight of hope, pride, and a continent's rising confidence. The John Pomag Foley Bridge does not demand applause. It does not need fireworks. It stands silently, carrying cars, trucks, traders, students, and families. But in its silence, it speaks louder than any celebration. It says Tanzania has crossed more than a lake. It has crossed into a new era. And in doing so, it has left behind a message written in steel for the rest of Africa to see.